And so this talk is really a research team effort. And in this picture is Deanna Eaglefeather, and she's a student at Sinte University, which is in Mission, South Dakota. And she's the student that's done a lot of the work on this, as well as these are a group of my graduate students that go out and do the botanical surveys. And I've also worked on this with Linda Blackout, some of you already know. A huge part of this project is working with research teams, and there's a lot of unsung heroes in the world out there, and some of them are people like Arlo Ironclad, who's on the radio every day talking about issues, tribal issues and food sovereignty issues. And then other people like Carmelita Scully, who spends all day growing food for people in South Dakota that really don't have enough food to eat. So. And kind of the theme of a lot of my research projects is healing historical traumas as much as we possibly can, and also helping communities that we forced to change and that have changed a lot, being able to face the challenges of climate change. So communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change. And also working with communities that have limited resources, seasonal poverty, on things like food sovereignty issues. And I'll just say that one of the most rewarding elements of this project was going out with this beautiful 8-year-old girl, and she found some wild asparagus in the park. And she looked at me and she goes, "Can I pick it?" And I'm like, "Oh yes, you can pick it," you know. And it was so great to see her pick that and eat it. So I'll talk about where this project is located. For those of you who don't know where South Dakota is, you know, how many people have been to South Dakota? Oh, hey, a lot of people. How many people is that your desired place to go all summer and do field work? All right, there we go. So I think one thing that we overlook as ethnobotanists is we like to go to exotic, wonderful, beautiful locations. And a lot of times places like Hardin County, Kentucky, or Bethel, Alaska, or South Dakota get overlooked by a lot of our research. A couple of things about it is that we all know about the prairie, but where a lot of this field work happens is in Wind Cave National Park, which has the Northwest Ridge Plains mixed grass prairie, but it also has short grass prairie. So it's a location of where both of those ecotypes occur. And it's actually a location where there's the most intact remnant prairie left of those two ecotypes. And as you can tell, about 4 hours away is the Rosebud Reservation, which is a entirely different community of sand prairie and like desert grasslands. So of course the land that we didn't want is where we put other people. And because of that, a lot of these plants don't grow on the Rosebud Reservation that I'll be talking about. Again, this is just another map for those of you that understand South Dakota. This is all native land, right? Some of it is owned, currently managed by the federal government. And then there's a whole bunch of different Native American reservations. Most people have heard of Pine Ridge, which is this one right here. And Rosebud's kind of one that's a little bit further to the east. So a background on this project: in 2016, the National Park Service changed their ruling to allow for members of federally recognized tribes to petition for permits to gather plants or plant cards. There's a lot of confusion about national parks, and someone mentioned before about national parks are these places that are set aside or not managed. If you all know, in Ohio, where we are right now, the national park is a place where white people raise pigs, okay, literally pigs and other farm animals. So all kinds of national parks have different rules of what goes on there. Like if you went to the Smokies before, they would allow people to graze horses all over it. So we see them as being untouched, but they're not really untouched. But in order for tribes to do this, they have to go through an environmental impact assessment. And there's a lot of debate on who pays for that and questions like that we're not sure of. But the objectives of this project were to figure out what plants people cared about, harvesting from wind cave, and also how supportive is Wind Cave National Park for the sustainable harvesting of these plants. And there's a continuum of potential impacts. If you talk to anyone in the Park Service, they don't mind if someone removes an exotic plant from the park, right? Because they spend lots of time and money digging those up or spraying them with herbicides. Lots of people were into things like motherwort or other species that are exotic. So there's that, all the way down to, are you taking like a bud of a tree and using it to make a salve, where you might not be actually hurting the tree that much, removing some photosynthetic. And even things like the Lakota people call the red-nosed dogwood red willow, but they would cut it off. And it actually promotes it to grow back more. It's a coppicing technique that the plant has evolved with for a long time. And even things like cutting down notchpole pines for teepee poles, well, that's done already for fire management in a lot of ecosystems. And it's also, a lot of these sites are kind of overstocked because of lack of fire. All the way to kind of digging a tuber of something like a coneflower that we can all think of, or prairie turnips, where there might be some negative impact of digging that plant out of the ground. There may not be. So one of our objectives was to record some traditional ecological knowledge and share that between generations. So times like, when do you harvest the coneflower? And people would repeatedly say to me, you wait till after the petals have fallen off, after it's flowered. And then what do you do when you harvest it with the remainder of the plant? How much you leave behind? And what are the kind of taboos that can be used as conservation strategies? And I also spent a lot of time creating these habitat models because I really love to spend time in R and ArcGIS. It's like my favorite thing to do, especially on cold winter days in Frostburg. So I'll talk a little bit about those and what we did with those. So with the interviews, I actually personally didn't interview anyone. I hired local Lakota Sinte students to interview their uncles and their family members, and they actually came up with the questions that they wanted to know about. So when you think about the SED Code of Ethics, if you all haven't read through it, but thinking about mutual benefits, this interactive cycle that you want to have, due diligence, informed consent, all of that stuff. I think it's important to think about, it wasn't me and my graduate students during the interviews, it was the local people there at the local community colleges. And the other thing is, a lot of times people interview elders in a community, which I think is great. But I also think that we need to interview people of different generations. And so I intentionally sought out millennials and Generation X people to talk to because they might know something or have different perspectives on things. And I did that through students who had taken plant classes. And I actually could get the resources of who had been in plant classes at the tribal college and reached out to them for information for interviews. And then vegetation plots that the Park Service does over a long period of time is the data that went into my habitat models. And the habitat models had all kinds of other things that plants care about, like fire history or carrying buffers, geology, land cover, all of that sort of thing. So this is an example of a habitat model, and what the habitat model does is it looks for something like Portinsula, which is prairie turnip. You all might have seen them hanging. So the habitat model is taking the known locations of prairie turnips and figuring out, okay, these are actually growing all on like the southeastern facing slopes at about this elevation and about this far from a riparian area and about this kind of heat load index. And so this dark red area is the best place to find Tinsula at Wind Cave. So these deep red areas, an aspect was the most important thing for this plant, but those are the areas where you would find this Tinsula. Okay. And then for coneflower, it's more of a prairie generalist. So this deep red, you can notice there's a lot more deep red for coneflower. This would be the best area to find coneflower. And these models were designed based on previous vegetation surveys. But once we developed the models, we went out and field tested them and refined them and did lots of validation of the models. But like I'll just go back for a second. And in the interviews, you can see that 56% of the people said they would want to harvest Tinsula from Wind Cave in particular. And then again, Echinacea was a frequently mentioned plant that people wanted to harvest. Then something like common yarrow, this is actually common yarrow, the habitat model for that. We did one for yucca, we did one for lots of different species. But basically, we can determine, if you look at these two habitat models next to each other, you'll see there's lots of suitable habitat for coneflower, but not as much suitable habitat for prairie turnip, right? And so that information is really valuable to the Park Service to be able to say, how much suitable habitat is there at this park. And then we took that information and compared a whole bunch of different species. So turnip, coneflower, scarlet glow mallow, lots and lots of different species. We did it for 27 plants. And then we actually took the top 10% of the suitable habitat. So that would be like the best habitat. So this is for common yarrow. And you can see right here, there's a whole lot of great suitable habitat for yarrow. And these lines are the roads and a buffer to the road. So the visitor center is right here. So this would be a place where a lot of people would maybe come to collect yarrow. And be a place that would be highly accessible even to elders to come and collect that plant. Meanwhile, over in this area, you're a little bit further from the road, and in this area too, but it's really highly suitable habitat for yarrow. So then we can go to the park and say, these are your areas where you can have in situ conservation for this species. Maybe you can also put in your permits, you can harvest yarrow, but you can't harvest it from this one corner of the park. And so then you could reestablish it back in the area that had been over-harvested. So kind of my conclusions and next steps. A lot of the things that we're doing are engaging all the generations kind of in this traditional ecological knowledge of how to harvest the plants and when to harvest the plants. And also doing plant workshops through Sinte University to share that knowledge. And the other thing that I'm doing is sharing these models with the Park Service so that when they go to do the environmental assessment, they know a lot about where the plants are. Have time for questions?